says you're muted.
Good catch. Yeah, that would have probably important for the recording. Yeah. Okay, it looks like it's just turned 5. You have 5 o'clock?
I do.
All right, so then I'm going to call the August 14th, 2025 meeting of the Lexington Planning Commission to order. First item is approval of the agenda. You've all had a chance to look at the agenda. Are there any revisions anyone wishes to propose? In the absence, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so moved, and the agenda is now approved. So we move on to our next item, which is approval of minutes. We've all had the opportunity to review the minutes from July 24th, 2025. Did anyone have any comments about or corrections to the minutes from July 24th, 2025? I had none. No one else seems that no one else had any.
Wasn't here.
You weren't here, so again, I would entertain a motion if anyone has one.
And I wasn't here, but I listened to the meeting and didn't find the minutes to be in order, so I will go ahead and vote.
Is that
You're moving approval.
Yeah, I moved to approve. I just want to make sure we have a quorum.
Ah,
Then, yeah, okay. I moved to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, so that we've approved the minutes. The next item on our agenda is citizens' comments on matters not on the agenda. Are there any hard to see citizens out there who are ready to comment on matters not on the agenda? I see none. Do any of you see any? No. All right, then I'm going to close citizen comment on matters not on the agenda, and we'll move to new business, which is ZOA 2025-03. Arnie, do you have a staff report?
Indeed, and good afternoon, everyone. Last Thursday, City Council held their public hearing on canopy signs. This is an amendment that is asked by a private property owner downtown, and it has become before you and also the Architectural Review Board. So what's different in your packet on page 5 is a little bit of history. So that first paragraph just describes the request, and what specifically council, at least my take, is that they are generally in favor of it, would like a few more details worked out to make sure that there aren't any inconsistencies, and so that this type of sign could potentially be allowed downtown. And those items that they specifically highlighted for focus would be the hours that the sign may be lit, so perhaps some hours of operation limitations, color of the lighted letters. It was pointed out that there wasn't a stipulated or conditioned or regulated color choice. So if somebody came in and asked for red, could they? Yes, they could, but please also know that you have a backstop. This is in the C1 district, therefore it's also in the Downtown Historic Preservation District.
Mm-hmm.
So any sign is going to go in front of the ARB regardless. So you do have that as a backstop, but it would perhaps be helpful to limit the color choice. The third item would be there's potentially an inconsistency between what we're doing in C1 and C2. There's a potential that we may not even need to have any rules and regulations in C2, but we'll go through that in detail tonight to make sure that there aren't any inconsistencies again between letters. And also I started putting some language into the definition. If we have it in the definition, then it's automatically going to apply to both the C1 and C2. And maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe there's a distinction between a canopy sign letters and a canopy sign cabinet in the C2. So we'll get into that. And then perhaps any other thing that we can address that might sort of more tightly regulate this type of sign in the historic district. So this is in essence really more of a work session could not advertise this meeting because obviously from last Thursday to today couldn't meet advertising requirements. There is an ad in for a public hearing for a planning commission in 2 weeks' time. So I'm hoping that we can do is we'll sort of churn through, work through some additional language and then have that ready for your meeting in 2 weeks for the public hearing. And then also have the applicant here and hopefully also have the applicant provide some more detail between now and then, which they weren't able to do for today, exactly the type of channel letter sign and how they intend it to be lit. And you also have some handouts there.
Right. Great, thank you. So we have no applicant statement today.
Correct. That should probably not have been on.
Right.
At Friday morning, as I was putting this out, wasn't aware that the applicant wouldn't be here, wouldn't be able to be here.
Right.
So we do not have an applicant statement, correct?
So, right, so I won't call that. Would folks like to ask Arnie some questions now, or would you like to save that for when we move into commission discussion and decision following?
I have a question, Arnie. So it sounds like you're looking for more detail from the applicant, but this isn't an application for a sign. This is an application to change the zoning ordinance, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
And perhaps to answer that, if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's not an application for a sign, but they are asking to have a text amendment done to specify or allow a specific type of sign.
right,
And I would like as much as possible to narrow that down to what they are specifically asking for. As far as the type of sign, the color, so that,
they will have to come in
oh yeah,
with an application afterwards.
this is just to allow, as is written now,
Mhm.
anybody with a canopy downtown
Right.
with at least 40 feet of frontage and whatever else we come up with to apply for a sign in front of the architectural review.
Right,
Yes. So we're just trying to set the sort of the ground rules.
right. At present, this is neither a conditional nor a by right use in C1 or C2, correct?
The only type of sign in the C1, again, C1 is the Downtown Historic Preservation District that we allow. That's an internally illuminated sign, is a 3 square foot window sign
Right.
for, and it has to be neon, true neon, not fake neon.
Hmm.
So that's why we're sort of crafting an additional illuminated allowance for this individual letter, which is really a channel letter.
Excuse me, Arnie, were you, you were giving us your briefing ahead of time there, and I didn't interrupt you, but you were talking about two different things, and I don't think one was a canopy and then the other one was an awning, but there were two different
Types of sign, the letters versus a box, is that what?
I think so, and I'm not quite sure what we're referring to there.
Okay, I'm not sure that I'm picking up exactly where that was.
She's asking the question I asked you the other day. Are we just talking
Oh.
about letter signs in C1 and in C2? Is that the case, or are we allowing just a canopy sign like the Sheets one that I think you referred to as a box? Is that what you referred to it as, a box sign?
I'm going to pass around two things and then we're going to go to your last handout, which is the subway. I think the subway handout. Or lesson, if you
Mhm.
will.
Yes.
This is a channel letter.
Okay,
So it's a 3D thing. It's got a back, it's got sides. The sides are called the return. The back is called the back, and then you have some sort of panel in the front that is translucent. And the
Mhm.
light is
Mhm.
so. Should go down. And then how it's made and why it's called a channel letter. Because it has sides and basically the letter is a channel, the light in the channel. That's why it's called a channel letter. They can be illuminated in the front, going back, and we'll get into that. Very Stuart, your question about is it a cabinet or is it individual letters? And I think that's best shown in that subway.
Yeah.
So you see the bottom sign, and they called it a logo sign or something, but I would call that a cabinet sign. So it's really one cabinet. Mind you, it's a kind of a fancy cabinet with the different letters, but it's all one piece. The one that's on the top or above, those are individual letters.
and that's called a channel.
That's called a channel letter.
Okay.
So, and that one happens to be attached to a raceway. So that thing that it's sitting on top of, and this is more detail than perhaps we need, but they can be attached either individually to a wall, and then you have to attach each one of them with say 4 screws and then you have to get the electricity to the back of them. It's a little bit easier to put them on a raceway, and that's that yellow thing that each of the letters are attached to, and then you attach the raceway actually you attach the raceway to the wall first, I think. But that way you use fewer screws, which is a good thing if the property owner doesn't want 40 screws and only wants 10. But then we're also adding an element in a raceway that isn't really historic either. So I'm hoping that answers your question about individual channel letters versus more of a cabinet sign that just is internally illuminated.
That's what I wasn't following before.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then to ask for you to turn to your other handout that's on your desk this evening, the 4 types of channel letter sign, just to, again, a little bit of background. Fortunately, I think I should have put these in color and not in black and white. Apologies. But just the first page there, those individual letters just happen to be on a standoff. So there's a little bit of a space between the letter and the wall, but that's just for this particular type of sign or installation. And you can see these are all individually attached to the wall. But those have the channel letters with the channels with the lighting in and some sort of panel on the front. And that's the typical standard front lit. So it's the lighting is in the middle, but you see the light from the front in the front only. So that is your standard channel, front lit channel letter. Over on the next page with that big R, it's a little bit hard to see if I didn't do it in color, and apologies, but that is really more of a solid letter, and the light is actually coming out of the back side. So it's hitting the wall, and therefore you have more of that
Reflection.
reflection or backlit. In my mind, it's even probably more modern
Mm.
than the other one, but that's just another type. And that again is a halo lit or a backlit. And then the RH outlet at the bottom is a combination of both of those things. So you get both the light coming out of the front and the light hitting the wall. And then over on the next page, that AMC, and that's actually has neon in it, and it doesn't have any sort of acrylic panel. So you actually see the neon, and that's an open face. So you just have the channel itself for each letter, and then you have the neon running through it, and you see the neon. So there's no sort of acrylic panel that covers it. I thought that that is what the applicant was requesting, because in their submittal, they had open face channel letter, but then it also confused me because it said something about an acrylic panel in there. So I'm trying to get more specification from the applicant for what type of sign that they would like to have. And as much as possible, unless you see that a reason for some flexibility, I would recommend that we go with whatever they're asking for and not say all 4 type channel letters, if that makes sense.
Are all these 4 types, are they all illuminated by neon?
They can either be, I think they are typically neon or LED. LED is so much more efficient now, and I think less problematic on a maintenance standpoint than neon. So I think most of them probably now are LED and not neon anymore.
All 4 types?
Mhm.
Do we right now, the way our ordinance is, would we allow letters like this on a canopy with uplighting on the letters? Would that be considered like a freestanding sign with lighting? or-
We're just talking about individual letters
Yeah.
that have externally illuminated, either
Yeah.
up or down. Yeah. That's that type of lighting. It's more appropriate in the historic district because you obviously didn't back in the day have a cabinet that could be internally illuminated with plastic panels where the light comes out. So if you think about a projecting sign
Mhm.
and the lights come down, or a wall sign with the lights coming down or even shining up, yes, we allow those types of signs. Even if there's no prohibition against individual letters that are externally illuminated.
Okay,
I can't think of one as an example off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But the ARB might scratch their head a little bit and think, is that historic or not? But there's no prohibition, certainly not in C2.
yeah, right, say two.
So we're trying to establish parameters for C1 and C2, Arnie, or?
Well, that's perhaps my failing a little bit in the sense that the applicant was only asking for C1. And I thought, well, this more modern type of sign is okay in the historic C1 zoning district. Why would we not apply it also to the C2? But then there's some potential inconsistencies that we have to work through.
But I do think you're right that we do need to add it to C2. We need to have something because now we've changed the definition of awning and canopy. And if we don't put something, then it's not allowed. You know, if we don't mention it, it's not allowed.
We will get to that one
Yeah.
if we can maybe work first on page 7. So in the C1 zoning district, what I've left, what I also tried to show you is everything in red is what you've seen before.
Right.
But blue was just sort of a quick placeholder. I only had a few hours Friday morning to put this together. So the one idea was just for how many of these were permitted and where they're permitted. The idea was perhaps, and this is in blue on that number column coming across from the row for canopy signs, where previously it just said permitted, but thinking that perhaps we say that it's one canopy sign allowed per building with greater than, the greater than is kind of hard to see there, but greater than 40 feet of street frontage. The particular building that we're dealing with, which is the hotel building, the frontage is only 30 some feet, but they have the whole base of the building. So I was trying to write something that allowed a canopy sign for that particular building and also only encompass the existing buildings that we have that have canopies.
Yeah.
So if you look at, later on in page 11 on, you see the frontage for that particular building, which is the Gin Hotel. You see the State Theater, you see Nico's and that other one that's proposed for Washington Street. And I did a quick, can I find it? I did a quick look on our, figure out what the frontages are. Oh, here we go. So as an example, the Gin has a building width, trying not to focus on just the width of the hotel frontage, but the building overall has 84 foot of width. Nico's is 40 feet, State Theater is 49 feet, and the Adamson new storefront on Washington would be 48 feet. So I just grabbed the lowest, thinking, why would you not allow, if we're going to allow a canopy sign, why not allow it on canopies we have instead of saying cutting out Nico's and setting it at a higher standard? So that's where the 40 feet came from, just to explain that.
And the rationale for setting a minimum width in the first place is to prevent or to address concerns about the proliferation of such signs that other establishments would all put up canopies and just a check against that. Is that the rationale?
Yes, and it's also to do exactly that, but how do we sort of distinguish the type of buildings that this sign can go on?
Right.
Because we were trying to find other ways at council, such as hours of operation. In other words, the suggestion was, well, this is a 24-hour operation for this, and they get to have a canopy sign. That made me nervous because there's no real rational sort of basis for that. So it's more typical for us to look at frontage as an example. On hanging signs, you have to have, for a building up to 30 feet, you can have 9 square foot. But if the frontage for that business frontage is more than 30 feet, then you can have up to 15. So basing the allowance and the square footage of the sign on the width of the building is a typical thing to do.
Okay.
So that was sort of the rationale behind placing something into that number column for canopy signs.
Thank you.
Any questions on that?
Not on that specific point myself. You?
No, I like that rationale.
Yeah.
Okay, over on to page 8, and now we're going to get into the C2. It was pointed out that we noticed right below canopy and awning where we made those changes in the sign type. So the leftmost column, it also says internally illuminated. And I really didn't catch this. Well, why did we need to put anything in for canopy sign if we already had internally illuminated signs permitted? So it's your sort of option, perhaps, to get rid of canopy signs here and not worry about it. Or I think, as Leslie's already mentioned, that there's a need for it there, but perhaps we don't put letters not more than 15 inches high, because I think, well, the sign that we have for sheets, which I think is on the last page of the packet, is not a lettered individual channel letter. So it's not the last page. Page 14.
Yeah.
And that's more like the subway sign that you have that's at the bottom. So if we're going to leave something in C2, perhaps we don't put letters not more than 15 inches
Yeah.
high. We say cabinet or just leave it as square
height.
footage.
Just like, oh,
Yeah.
square footage.
So does that make sense just to do square footage?
Yeah.
Okay. Sign area not more than 10 square feet.
And I think 10 is probably too small. I mean, I kind of eyeballed the sheets and I could be way off, but I sort of calculated is roughly about 15 square feet.
The 10 simply became from doubling what we had in C1. So that's the only rationale behind it. So
Mhm.
if you're comfortable with 15, we can certainly make that amendment.
Yeah. Something that wouldn't make the sheets one be,
Don't know what the size of the sheets
Yeah, 'cause I
is.
think it actually looks pretty good, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and I was sort of assuming
Yeah.
2x7 when
Yeah, looks about right. Yeah.
but I could be way off. It's always hard when it's up there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
That is.
I will try to find out what the sheets canopy signs are. I think there's one on each of their entrances.
Yeah.
Canopy signs, and I'm not sure they're all going to be the same, but I'll try to figure that out for your next meeting.
So regarding that sign, the sheet sign on page 14, would your cabinet size include those rays on the side, those yellow rays or
Yes.
not? Yes.
I put, and it's the part of the definition, one shape.
Mhm.
If something goes way up here in the sign, then that gets included.
Yeah.
So they need to make it a little bit more compact to not lose square footage.
Right.
But yes, one shape goes over the entire display area.
can I jump back just a second and then it'll also apply to this one? On the C1, we set the maximum height at 20 feet above grade. And I think I'm okay with that, especially considering we allow a wall sign at 15, and this would be above, on top of the canopy.
Yeah.
But then I also look at it like the Dutch Inn building.
Yeah.
And 20 feet on that type of building is really the second story. I don't know that you'd ever put a canopy, but I would hate for someone to put like a little canopy and try to put but it can't be taller than the roof too.
Mm.
And Dutch Inn is perhaps not the best example because if the Dutch Inn had a flat roof, then yes, it could, but it would be on top of the canopy wherever the canopy is located. And I
Yeah.
don't think, I'll go back. If we look at the photograph for the State Theater, and I did not admittedly have my tape measure with me,
Yeah,
but I was going to put 15 feet just because that's the typical size for wall signs and whatever else is at 15.
uh-huh.
Freestanding signs, wall signs. But then there's such a slope with the canopy over the State Theater entrance. I was worried that on the right-hand side, it might be more than 15.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't have worried about that. Maybe I should go out and measure the center of that canopy. And then maybe we can reduce from 20 to something less.
Is that how the height of that canopy would normally be determined? So when you have a slanted ground area under a horizontal canopy, how do you determine the height of that canopy? Minimum, maximum, average?
That not for signs, not for building heights that we have a little bit more detail, but to be honest, for that part of it, we don't. Let's say the wall sign cannot be more than 15 feet. If they put on that building, the wall sign on the right-hand side of the building, which is,
Right.
the grade is falling the way, I'm going to measure it right underneath the
So
sign.
that makes
Mhm.
sense. So for a canopy sign, you'd measure under the canopy sign, proposed canopy sign placement.
And I could go out, I'll do that too, go out and measure the middle of the canopy, the State Theater.
Wait for a nice cool day.
Yeah, right. And I guess and then later, I think part of what it was got to be okay with the 20 feet again was in our actual sign ordinance. So on 420-13.4, it has prohibited signs. And it says signs or parts of a sign located anywhere on the roof or wall of a building so that they extend above or beyond the perimeter of the building's roof, wall, or parapet wall, or into the front, side, or rear yard setback. Should we include canopy in there? Any part of a sign located anywhere on the roof, wall, or canopy of a building? Or roof is a
Hard for me to
canopy.
imagine a canopy if you put anything on top of a canopy that that's only a 10-inch tall letter, correct?
Yeah,
That you're gonna somehow be above a roof. But perhaps it doesn't hurt to add that to the definition.
yeah. I'm just wondering, and I'm probably overthinking it, but if you get back to like the Dutch Inn building or the Nico's, if somebody was trying to be cute and put a canopy high up so they could get a sign
Oh.
higher.
Get really, really odd looking canopy
Yeah.
thing.
And it's probably overthinking it because both C1 goes through ARB, C2 goes through us. So there's going to be checks and balances. But it's probably fine, especially if we allow wall sign at 15.
The whole point of it is so that somebody driving or walking can actually read it. And
Yeah.
if it were,
You
It
hope
would-
you hope it. That's the point. That's what it should be, right?
Right.
We don't want it to become something else. And I was relieved to see in the prohibitions that it doesn't allow flashing signs because I didn't know if we needed to put something in there
Right.
about that.
You don't want flashing signs because it'll mimic emergency vehicles and whatever else, and you don't want roof signs because honestly, they're tacky. I'm not really sure that we need to put anything in because I'm gonna automatically consider it a roof sign.
Okay.
Because if it goes above the parapet or the roof then it's gonna be a no-go per what you read.
Okay.
Mhm.
Then that's good. 20, I think 20 feet's fine.
So we'll leave 20 feet in then, or leave 20 feet in, I'll measure the middle of the canopy of the state and then figure out if there's adjustment is needed.
That'd be terrific.
And 20 feet is, just to be clear, you picked that, you selected that height because it'll capture all the existing canopies in town, which is fair. Yeah.
Is that all we need to do with C2?
C1.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're okay with the 40 feet for building frontage. We're okay with the 20 feet max and then the 10 inches in height and 5 square feet.
Yeah.
And also, to be honest, the applicant reminded me during council that they had not asked for 5 square feet. They asked for something that was like 3.62.
Yeah.
I rounded up.
Yeah, sure.
That's how we got to 5.
But that gets to Charlie's question too, is that right now we're being conservative, but we can always relax it if we find out that we undersized it.
True.
It's always hard to go the other way.
Yeah.
In several instances, we've recommended sort of the more conservative approach. And then if 1 or 2 go up and then you think, oh yeah, if that was 7 square feet or 10 square feet and not a problem, then we could then make an amendment at that time.
This is not an important question, but very quickly. So when you're measuring the square feet of a channel sign where the letters are separate, I mean, are you talking about the surface area of the face of those letters? Or you imagine, I think you said this before, like drawing a line around the border.
I'm not doing anything complicated.
Yeah, right. So it's literally like this end to that end and a rectangle around it.
They, for some reason, wanted to put B all the way over here and Jen all the way
Yeah.
over here. I'm gonna count the whole thing. 'Cause
Got it.
that's their
Yeah.
message. That's their display area, is that entire thing. So that doesn't behoove them to spread it. They need to put it together for their message. Or
Right.
just end up with really small letters.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So this means in essence with a 10-inch height requirement, these could be 6 feet wide at maximum if there's a 5 square foot limit. Seems pretty,
And that's,
reasonable.
that's,
am I doing the math right?
I think you are.
Yeah,
that's, that's not very much.
right.
Talking
Yeah. Seems pretty
roughly.
modest sign.
They did say their original sign was 1.5 feet by 6 feet.
Yeah.
So it would have been closer to 10
Right.
square feet, but
And I also should, that reminded me that I think Lee Taylor also mentioned that
Yeah.
the photograph or the submittal,
Yeah,
that's wrong. In other words, it's a good bit smaller than that.
considerably.
That
so.
was what they started with, but their actual proposal is much smaller than the GIN letters that you
Right.
see in their desired sign.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're okay with C1 as is. I'll check with the size for the State Theater.
oh, And it's not in that table, but are you going to come back to in the definition? I guess we'll do the definition later.
That's why I was thinking, just sort of moving
Yeah,
through.
that's fine.
That's great.
Then in C2, we're going to strike most of that for the sign and just leave sign area not more than 10 square feet. Oh, no, 15, is that what I heard?
I think 15.
Yeah,
Go
15.
with 15.
Did we all agree about that?
And I will find out what the size of
Yep.
the current ones. Hopefully they're all the same, but hopefully we still have that in our electronic files and I'll be able to find the size of the current sheets signs.
On the number for canopy, is it any problem to put one per building street frontage, like similar to?
One per business street frontage.
Yes, and
Mhm.
do we want to limit it to the 40 square feet again? Because in C2, you end up with some businesses that are pretty small, you know, like I'm thinking of the strips.
Strips, we have very little.
So does it? I don't know that's a
But-
problem if they have a sign.
But let's just say the strip where we have the Jalisco restaurant
Mhm.
and all the other ones that are in there. This, if we just do one per business per street front, then each one of them can have one. And I think that's your concern, correct?
Yeah, but they're already allowed to have a wall sign, right? Yeah.
Come to think of it, Cookout already has channel letter signs all the way down the side and maybe even on the front.
Who does?
Cookout.
Oh,
They
okay.
got a lot
I
of
haven't
time.
paid
They do
attention.
all this.
Yeah.
Not sure how that happened, but down the side particularly.
Yeah.
So you're okay with not putting some sort of minimum front?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm okay with
Okay.
that. one.
So there's nothing else for C2. Going over the definitions. I started packing in, trying to hit these sort of highlighted items again, and those highlighted items, sort of from direction from council would be the hours that the sign may be lit, the color of the letters, and removing that C2, C1 thing that we've just discussed.
Yeah.
So in blue, well, I'll read the whole thing. For sign awning, a sign placed directly on or attached to the surface of an awning. Sign canopy, a sign placed directly on or attached to the surface or top of a canopy. Canopy sign cannot be attached to an awning, marquee, vehicle, fueling station, or pitched roof structure. And those last two are because of the stop in and the Dutch in particular. And then sort of new proposed language, canopy signs can only be internally illuminated with white colored lights, and canopy signs cannot be illuminated between the hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. The zoning administrator is authorized to require the brightness of canopy signs to be reduced if the zoning administrator finds the canopy signs emits excessive light levels of light. And that's being pulled from another section. And our attorney has also already sort of weighed in and said, that might not be the best way. So we're going to try to figure out a lumens maximum or somehow a way to address the brightness. Other places have a foot candle, like during the day, you can have 1,000-foot candles, and then at night, it can't be more than 700-foot candles, as an example.
Mhm.
That means that planning staff then has to buy a light meter and figure out how to use it.
So the attorney thinks we should codify a specific measure
Be a
rather
little
than
bit
leaving it to
more
the discretion.
specific other than
Yeah,
just
Right. And so then the idea is that we might have some suggestions about how that would be measured at our next meeting.
right.
Okay. Does that sound
Yep.
agreeable to you all?
Like it, I just wonder where you'll get the numbers, the suggested frequencies or numbers.
A
lumens.
quick search for an LED panel that I found for King William County. Had, again, I think I'm quoting correctly, 1,000-foot candles for the daytime and only 700 during nighttime. And then you'd have to figure out some sort of standard of where am I going to stand when I'm holding my light meter.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be 15 feet in the air right up against it. Is it at
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that might be an allowable or a good level for a historic area. And also there's white and then there's white.
Mhm.
You know, there's bright light, there's daylight, there's amber light, and I'm hoping that it won't be a bright, seriously shining white.
I think that's where the concern, I think is, if I remember correctly, it came up here at planning commission, but it also came up at council, sort of the brightness of these.
Soft white, I guess sometimes
Yeah.
it's called.
Could potentially do that.
Mhm.
Um, So we're trying to still work on the brightness level. How can we address brightness? You're also, we're only talking about a small sign again.
Yeah.
And we're in an urban area. And this also gets to the hours of
Yeah,
operation.
yeah.
So what is the expectation for somebody that happens to have a second level apartment downtown? And they have this sign, how bright is it going to be?
Yeah.
And is it really going to have a negative impact on their sort of quality of life? We're in an urban area, we have street lights, we have other ambient lights, we have, so this isn't going to be out in the rural area with dark sky completely. I only say that just to perhaps consider that we don't need brightness standards. But then all of a sudden we get this, we're gonna have a good applicant on the first one. I don't think we're gonna have any issues with them abiding by any request to turn down the light, but that doesn't protect us in the future or for any other newer light. So yes, perhaps should be concerned with the brightness, and we'll try to bring to you for your next meeting some standards that we can sort of find from other places, at least for brightness. I'm not sure quite how to handle the color quite yet.
I've heard it referred to as warm white,
I
Mhm.
like that.
that, so.
If we could, if we can regulate the brightness, I would actually be okay with changing the hours of operation. I mean, right now we only allow lit signs if while the business is open. The hotel's a bit of an anomaly because they're always open. They did express some concern with limiting the hours. Looking at it, that sign is, Arnie had brought it up, where we have street lights outside, and the sign actually would be about the same level as the street lights. So I don't know that it would be bothersome to the nearby residents.
I wonder if there's a way you can find out the brightness of the streetlights. That might be an equalizer there.
It's a good idea.
Another way that we thought to sort of attach this, other than trying to measure output, is put a limitation. If we understood what the limitation was, say that each light cannot have an output of more than 500 lumens, so that we know the fixture is rated for 500 and therefore it can never be turned up more.
Yeah.
It can't be turned to 11, as I said.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll only be up to the 500 lumens. But again, we'd have to understand, what does 500 lumens mean for the historic district? So
Yeah.
that was another potential way. I also forgot that in that King William example, they had language in there that it would also be electronically turned down, so you can program these things. So at nighttime, you could program it so that it is not as bright as perhaps during the daytime. So it would have a photo cell,
Yeah.
and it could make that automatic adjustment between 1,000 foot candles or whatever the power was during the day, and turn it down at night, because it doesn't need to be as bright at night. So there are some electronic gizmos that will help us do that, hopefully.
Do you think Public Works uses a certain wattage, for a better word,
That's
Uh,
Dominion.
in our streetlights? Don't
Mhm.
Well,
I could find out, but
Yeah.
LEDs and changes and all that. So it's just sort of, what is the standard one downtown? Is that the
Mhm.
question? What is?
something to start with, at least.
Mhm.
I agree with Leslie that if we can get regulation of the degree of illumination right, we could reconsider the hours question. We could at least put that on the table, right? And I think this is what you're intending, Arnie, but and I'm not trying to make work for anyone, but my hope is that when you come back in 2 weeks and talk about different possible standards for lumens, anything you could do to help us really understand what those numbers mean. Sounds like, I think that's key here. I don't have any idea what
It is.
700 lumens.
No, I don't either. I don't either.
Very confusing when you go to buy light bulbs.
Yeah. So I love the idea of like finding standards in different kinds of places, and I'll look to maybe just to see what's out there, but
We'll definitely do some more research before the next meeting.
thank you. Is there anything else about this that you would like our feedback about? Or any other questions?
In that blue, again, is talking about internal. So the white is that warm white. What is that? Then the hours and the brightness. No, those are the three things that are really baked into there. The other part that we had talked about a little bit was, and I'm not sure what the answer is yet, but since this is in definition,
Hmm.
it's going to apply equally to C1 and C2.
Right.
So we're not doing anything here, are we, that potentially we don't want done in C2?
Hmm.
Well, ours, again, but if we're okay on the brightness, if we figure out a way to handle brightness and get rid of hours, then that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, so I do think do we have to specify in the definition the difference between letters and cabinet?
Yeah. Right. Like once you ask that question, Arnie, does this sentence canopy signs can only be internally illuminated with white colored lights? Would the sheet sign, for instance, is it about the
Yeah.
color of the light inside or just the fact that that cabinet light has other colors on its surface? Would it, you understand what I'm trying to ask?
I think that what we're trying to do downtown is keep it as
Right.
traditional for this type of light as we
Yeah.
can. So whatever you see is going to be white.
Right.
And then I think the point is well made that the canopy sign for sheets is what, yellow
Yeah.
Yeah, red, yellow.
and red and some white. Mhm. So
Fine, but it's a whole different style of sign.
Right.
So
And what you're
then-
asking us is, are we defining that?
so maybe we need to pull out and put a note at the bottom. So another way to handle this is on page 7, actually it's going to be on page 8. For the C1 table, we already have a couple of notes at the bottom. So number 1, such sign shall not flash. Number 2, temporary signs. Maybe we have a number 3. Canopy signs must have a warm white,
Must emit warm white light.
something.
And would any lumen standards that we add go
It could
there
also,
as well? So we wouldn't be building that into the definition of canopy sign because we wouldn't want it necessarily to apply to C2.
that's sort of the point that I started just quickly
Yeah.
on Friday, baking things into the
Yeah.
definition and perhaps not thinking through, then it's automatically going to apply to both C1 and C2. So maybe we need to pull some of that out of the definition and add notes specifically to the C1 and C2 sections.
I really like the idea of putting a note at the bottom of the C1 table that says warm, such signs will emit a warm light. But, if the town attorney will allow such squishy language, I think that would be a good way to do it.
And so then I think what we're discussing, I mean, does everyone agree with the idea of moving that language from the definition of canopy sign and into a note underneath the C1 table to avoid the potential contradiction that Arnie's pointing to? Yeah. Seems reasonable to me.
And then in C2, if we pull that out, C2 is just open for business as far as light color goes. And knowing full well that you all in entrance corridor have the review authority there.
Right.
So for C1, are we allowing all these types of channel lights?
And that's another part of this.
Okay, I don't want to
is
jump in. I didn't mean to
They
jump in.
were in their submittal, had what's the fourth one on there? An open face, but it also showed in the cross section some sort of acrylic thing. So I'm not sure exactly what they're asking. So they are going to specify before the next meeting, and it'll be in your packet, I hope, what it is specifically that they're asking for. I am hopeful that we then also put that in another note for C1,
Mhm.
that they don't, as an example, I would really not like to have the type of channel letter that has both front lit and backlit.
So you're imagining that note both says in C1, channel not cabinet, and then only a particular kind of channel.
Right. And then color.
And color as well, and the lumens issue, all kind of like putting that all there. Okay. Does that sound agreeable to everyone?
I definitely agree with that.
And a front lit channel light assumes a plastic cover. Yeah, I definitely like that.
Definitely agree that halo lighting, that backlighting is inappropriate in the historic district.
So hopefully what they'll provide us is either an open face channel lit, which is the very last one, which I'm going to use the word classy, perhaps is a little bit more classy than the other choices. But then it could also be the traditional one. So the very first one, they did not mention anything about a backlit. So it'll either be the standard front lit channel letter or the open face one, I believe.
And they said they were going to use the LED. Are we going to allow neon?
Good question.
That's a good question because right now, at least in C1, we have that neon only for a window sign. or
Yeah.
an illuminated. So we'd have to make sure, but if it's a standard front lit channel letter, I don't think we care because there's going to be that acrylic panel that should be clear or white. So do we care and I don't think people would go to the expense of putting neon behind something if you're not going to see the neon.
Right.
Be my presumption.
I would tend to agree with that. Yeah, as long as it has the plastic cover on it. Right?
But if they're truly asking for the open face lit channel letter where you have the channel in whatever the neon or the LED strip is, I think your question is still stands. Are we going to allow neon?
Yeah.
And it's not specified right now. So if somebody comes in with either one of those, I would say yes to either one of those.
Right.
That's definitely not historic, so I think we have every right to say
Yeah.
Leon, no Leon, no.
That's your
neon.
recommendation. We can certainly go forward with that.
And the document here says this sign is usually lit with neon rather than LED for open face lit channel.
And this is just one place that I found from one
Got
particular
it.
manufacturer. I think I'm reasonably sure that you
Do it
could
with
also
LEDs.
do
Yeah,
LEDs.
perfect. Great. Awesome.
And my guess also is that LEDs are going to be a good bit cheaper
Yeah.
because I think a lot of perhaps manufacturing has been lost
Yeah.
skill for neon just because it's not as popular as it
Totally.
once was. So it might be harder to find folks to do that.
And there is a type of LED that's sort of a snake-like
Yeah.
Yeah.
appearance that probably mimics neon somewhat.
We have definitely had people try to get faux neon signs approved in the historic district and I say, no, that's not true neon. Don't choose that open sign. Go find one that's actually true neon.
Yeah, I guess my concern on these channel letters would be that the lighting be diffused
Mm-hmm.
from the front. So that's what the plastic would do. But if you had very bright light spotlights behind it, that may not be adequate. You may get a odd appearance.
Like a carnival. That's
Yeah.
what I don't want
Yeah,
it to look like, a
that-
carnival.
No.
I totally agree. I think the diffuser having that makes all the difference and probably addresses a lot of the questions we have. It sort of doesn't matter what it's being lit with and will take care of the brightness somewhat, but
Okay, so we'll pull some of the things out of the definition, add those as notes as needed, more so in the C1, I think, than we'll end up in the C2. And so that will pull out the color. Hours of operation may go away anyway, but we certainly wouldn't want hours of operation in C2.
Right.
And then we'll figure out brightness in some form or fashion.
Great.
And I think that's all I have and there's also what else,
Oh.
item D, what else do you think could be utilized to allow this type of sign again in the C1 district, but put enough rule and regulation on it that it's not perhaps prolific or too out of keeping, not in keeping with the historic district?
Others have other thoughts on that?
I'm not in love with the idea. I much prefer the lights that come around, and either up lighted or from the side. But to me, that's much more historic.
And there's no way to regulate proliferation. That would be my concern, is that people come in and say, my awning, I only get 6-inch letters and I can get And they can't be illuminated, but I can get 10 inches and illuminated and at 20 feet if I take down my awning and replace it with a canopy.
But then they're gonna have to go to the expense of putting up a canopy.
Yeah.
They're
Right,
gonna have to
and-
make sure they have 40 feet of frontage for their
They'd have to-
building at a minimum. And it's only gonna be white light. And so
And it
there are
has to be
some,
reviewed. That alteration structure in C1 would be reviewed by ARB as
Mhm.
well as by us.
I mean, I think overall the sign will look really good.
Yeah.
And, you know, but planning commission years ago had not allowed the Southern Inn sign, you know, we would
Yeah.
have a plane looking downtown. You need to add a little character, but I think actually this proposal is pretty good at reining it in. It's only 5 square feet right now. And, yeah, just, I don't know that I want to see a bare bulb sign. I'd like having a plastic diffuser over it.
and if you also find that after the first one goes up, it's just an abomination for whatever reason,
Yeah.
We could
we
revisit it.
go back and revisit it.
Yeah.
So we don't allow it potentially on the second, third, and fourth canopies.
There was one, I'm trying to figure out where I saw that, and it said, a business, if there's more than one business there, they can allow, oh, it's on page 8, a building owner may allocate up to 15 square feet of the building's available signage to each business occupant located in an upper story basement or interior space not sharing the building. Where do we have an example of that? Can you think of one, Arnie?
Had to write that in for I can't remember, it was either 14 or 18 East Nelson Street. What was where you were able to make, where Main Street Lexington had that maker space.
Yeah.
And then sometimes
Oh,
you
yeah.
have other users that are in the back or in the basement, and they don't actually have a frontage or an office space that has frontage on the front of the building. They still should have some sort of ability to have at least 15 square feet or some amount of signage on the front of the building. So that's where we had to come up with something for you. Again, it was either 14 or 18 East Nelson Street.
Close to where, the Chamber of Commerce
Chamber.
is.
Where they are.
Building, but
Yeah,
if you went
yeah.
sort of into the chamber building,
Yeah.
not where the chamber is, but further over to the left,
Mhm.
they have stairs that go up in their offices in the upper back, and then in the lower back, there's also some space. So it was to accommodate the buildings that have a bit of
Numerous
depth to them.
Occupants, right, okay. And that's not our, that's not what we're talking about right now anyway. That's not the,
Well, we said they can only have one canopy sign, so you can pick which business gets the
Right,
canopy
that's
sign.
true. It is. I don't think you're gonna give it to the guy in the basement.
Right.
Well, who knows?
Yeah, it's up
Yeah.
to you, yeah.
you.
Yes, thank you very much for the staff report. I'm going to call everything that we just did questions in relation to the staff report. For the sake of procedure, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment. I see none. I assume no one has any additional discussion, and there's no decision to be reached beyond the recommendations we've already made. So I'm going to close new business. In other business, do we have a zoning and planning report? Or no?
No, we do. The survey for the comp plan is now live, and if you see the city's Facebook page, there will be a QR code on there. Please encourage all your friends, your neighbors, your foes to take that survey, please.
Oh, in the Gazette too. The QR code's in the Gazette.
Okay, yeah, we did put an ad in the Gazette, correct, and we will again in their next edition next week. But I forgot to bring any sort of copies of that. So yes, that's where you can find your QR codes. And again, more people, the better for that particular survey. We do have a first comp plan public input session. I think we have in our contract 3 for public input sessions to be held. And that will be held on August 27th at the school board office over on Diamond Street, beginning at 5:30.
What are you calling that?
Public input session. It's going to be sort of an open house style where there'll be 7 or 8 stations, and you'll be able to make your way through And we should have a staff person for each station. Not all stations may require a staff person, but we should have all of them staffed in case there are questions. There'll be some interaction with dots or with something else. So that again, on August 27th, and I think we're starting at 5:30, but we may have to start at 6. We'll still determine that.
Jeremy will be there as well, I imagine.
He's going to bring 3 or 4
Right.
people from.
And we're
each city.
encouraged to be there if we're free as well, I believe.
Yes, and if we're short a staff person, the planning commissioner may be enlisted.
Problem.
We'll see how that goes.
Glad to do it.
We have made an offer to a planning administrative specialist, and we hope to have someone on board soon that has more technical skills than I do for things such as Zoom and YouTube. On the August 27th at 10:30, we will have the Virginia Secretary of Transportation in town. Sorry if I'm stealing from the city
Good.
council report. Sorry.
What was the date again?
August 27th at
Okay.
10:30 for, I'm not sure if it's going to be a ribbon cutting or what, but for our North Main Street improvement. So the bike
Great.
lanes, the sidewalk, that
Great.
will be something will occur at 10:30 on the 27th of August.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if snacks will be involved.
We can bring our own.
That's all I have for a planning and zoning report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Arnie?
Not on your report. I'm kind of going backwards. Something to consider for next meeting. You know, we were saying it can only use white light, but do we actually mean white diffuser, clear diffusers
Yeah.
or white diffusers, not?
It's a good
But
question.
if we allow the open lights, then something just to keep in mind as you look into this for next week, next time.
It's good. Leslie, do you have a city council
I
report?
do. City council met, last Thursday on the August 7th. And then we had the public hearing on this, and that's why we're discussing it now. We did have we had public hearing on the mini warehouse zoning amendment, and that passed unanimously 5-0. We didn't have any public comment on that. We also, not so much related to planning, but we have, for, I can't remember probably at least 8 years, we've had a additional 1% transient occupancy tax that was going to the Horse Center to help with some of their debt payments. And one of the conditions was once they repaid their debt, that tax would stop. And they did paid off their debt last month. And so we did pass an ordinance that would still extend that tax, but we're planning on putting it towards Main Street since that's a tourism related use.
When
for it.
should that take effect? Do you know it, Leslie?
I think it took effect August. I think it's taken effect we passed it in August, so I assume it's still taking effect, that we never dropped the tax. So it's the same, whatever you've been paying in TOT and the transient occupancy tax will stay the same.
Okay, because there was that letter that came out from the Commissioner of Revenue that said,
It would drop 1%. Yes, so we've extended it.
I never saw any documentation on that, but okay.
That just happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know, I don't think you'll see a 1 or 2 month drop in it. I think it stays the same, that you should be collecting it and passing it on. Yeah. But Karen, I sure can tell you all the details, but if you didn't get a letter that told you to stop, did it say stop collecting it?
The first one did.
Okay, then if it said to stop collecting it, then you stop, and then she'll tell you when to start collecting it.
Thank you.
But we
Thank
plan
you.
to extend it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, no, it's up to, yeah, Karen will tell you how it's really run. And then, just to piggyback on Arnie, our next meeting for city council, it had a really light agenda. We're supposed to meet next Thursday, but we're not gonna have a regular meeting. In place of it, we're gonna have a work session on Moores Creek at 6 o'clock at 539 East Nelson Street, the temporary offices. And then we will also have a work session before our September 4th meeting, and that'll be from 5:15 to 6:45. And it'll be a tour of the new Williams School Extension Building, and I guess some presentations from W&L. And that's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, well, if there's no questions for Leslie, I would entertain a motion on our last remaining agenda item, which is adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
I
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
efficiently run meeting.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everybody being so thoughtful. Smart.